So what if your obsession with being liked is the very thing pushing people away from you? You want confidence, you want to stop caring what other people think of you. Well, that starts with the courage of being disliked. This is the Book Breakdowns. What's up, guys? Welcome back to the Book Breakdowns, the series where I cram 200 pages into 10 big ideas that'll change your life. This book is hyped up. Maybe you've seen it, maybe you've read it, maybe you've just heard interesting things about it. It's because it has a few hot takes, and we'll cover some in this video. So I encourage you to approach it with an open mind. Often truth is somewhere in the middle. This video is sponsored by Thrive Market. More on them later. All right, so what is this book all about? Let me give you the high-level overview before we jump into the individual pieces. Basically, there's this 20-something-year-old young kid. He thinks he has the world figured out and has an answer for everything. But despite knowing it all, he's deeply unhappy and dissatisfied. He lacks confidence, he's worried about what other people think of him, and he self-censors himself in conversations. So he goes and seeks out a philosopher who lives on top of a mountain, almost with the intention of proving this guy wrong. But over the course of 5 conversations, this kid gets his worldview completely rocked. You get to read this and see for yourself that by the end, this kid is feeling more confident, lighter, and dare I say, even happier. Now I know you're like, what did they talk about? Nothing. They took ayahuasca and this whole thing is a 200-page trip report. Clockwork elves, whoa. The next 9 ideas that follow are what they spoke about. This is big idea number 2. So the worldview today is dominated by Freudian psychology. Everything you are today is stemming back to your childhood. And while you can work with these wounds through psychotherapy, you never really fully get rid of them. They're always affecting you in the future in some way. Now you might be thinking, well, dude, that sounds a little deterministic. Like, what's the point of trying if we're just running on loops from our past? And that's exactly what Alfred Adler thought. And he introduced a whole new school of thought and split with Freud and Jung called Adlerian psychology. Boiled down into one sentence, you are not driven by past causes, you're drawn towards goals you yourself set. And everything you do, whether it serves you or holds you back, is trying to meet a need in some way. So I mentioned there was hot takes. Let's go into the biggest one. And hands down, if you look at reviews, the 1 stars are all bashing this take. So I'll explain it to you and then give you a little nuance that I think is missing from the book. Trauma doesn't exist. The book argues that if it really did exist, every 2 people that have the same experience would have the same outcome. But why is it that person A can have an experience and it's traumatic, whereas person B has that same experience and it's not? Examples, you see this play out with money all the time. Someone came from a super poor background and used that as the reason to get successful or get rich. Not everyone who comes from a broken home gets divorced, otherwise the divorce rate would be 100%. You find fit people who use being overweight as a kid and my bad genetics as motivation to get in the best shape and stay there. Or in the book's own words, it's not that you're unhappy because of your past, you're using your past to stay unhappy. My personal opinion, I see what they're saying. I think it's a little hyperbolic for good marketing to get people talking about the book. But the balanced perspective is, yeah, in whatever way trauma happens, no amount of us talking and like dwelling on it changes what actually happened. The only thing we can do, and what therapy does with you, is helps put it in your court. What are we gonna do from here? That's the hottest take in the book. Moving on, I think these takes are a little more reasonable and you can definitely get something immediately out of. But first, I gotta tell you about our sponsor, Thrive Market. Now, if you're someone who wants to eat clean, save time, and save a little bit of money as well, you gotta check out Thrive Market. Thrive Market is an online membership-based grocery store. I'm talking everything from groceries, supplements, personal products delivered straight to your door. The personal reason I like to shop at Thrive Market is their mission statements to make healthy and sustainable living easy and affordable to everyone. And selfishly, I like getting the cheapest prices. They even have a price match guarantee. So if you find any of these items cheaper, they will match it. So you can always shop knowing you're getting the best deal. Obviously, grocery shopping is highly individual, but let me show you 3 of my favorite items I picked up from Thrive. Right here, these Smart Sweets watermelon bites. 130 calories, you can eat the whole bag and not feel guilty about it. Speaking of alternatives, y'all know I'm 1500 days sober. So I love this right here. This is hop water. 0 calories, still tastes kind of hoppy, perfectly refreshing for those summer days when you're trying to not drink or maybe cut back. And third, Thrive Market not only has healthy snacks for you, but also your 4-legged friends, or in our case, our 3-legged dog, Hondo. So if you want to try it for yourself, scan this QR code right here, or click the first link in the description, thrivemarket.com/Clark Kegley. That's thrivemarket.com/Clark Kegley. You get 30% off your first order with that link. Pretty cool. And new members get a free gift with your Thrive Market membership. Huge thank you to Thrive Market for sponsoring this video. All right, so the next point isn't a hot take, but it's medium rare. Because if trauma doesn't determine our happiness, then what does? Well, Adlerian psychology says the answer lies in interpersonal relationships. The book says to get rid of one's problems, all one can do is live in the universe alone. What does this mean? It means that a lot of your problems come from how you're relating to others. Think about status, right? Do I have more or do I have less? That's relating to others in comparison. Comparison's another one. Where am I on the social hierarchy? FOMO. We even have a word for it. When you're on Instagram, you pull it open and you see a bunch of people doing cool stuff in countries you've never been to. Fear of missing out, and you don't even know those people. So if you didn't have people in the world, all those problems wouldn't exist. Now I know what you're thinking. You might be like, well, dude, if I'm in the world alone, who would want that? That's so lonely. This book actually says there's a difference between alone and lonely. Because alone, you can be totally content with, and that's a worthwhile pursuit. You should be alone and comfortable. You should be content with just you and yourself. And only from that place can you really even have relationships, because you're self-full. And when you go to relationships, you're not trying to get things and like you're not needy, you're just vibing. But if we're lonely, well, that's where we're like incapable of being alone. Loneliness, by definition, has other people involved. Otherwise, you couldn't feel it. So again, balancing out what this book is actually saying, I think internal problems, you can say, are interpersonal relationship issues, because it all goes back to how you're comparing, how you're relating, the status game, things like that. Make sense? Moving on to the next big idea. This is one of my favorites. Here is big idea number 5. To illustrate it, I want to tell you a story I picked up from The White Lotus. You ever seen that show? Season 1, there's an amazing character that Mike White writes in, known as Shane. From the outside, everything has gone Shane's way. Like Ivy League school, trust fund, he just got married and he's at the White Lotus Resort in Hawaii on a honeymoon. What could go wrong? Well, for Shane, when he gets there and finds that his honeymoon suite he's supposed to be staying in got double booked and they got bumped out of it, a lot.
Actually, I think you put us in the wrong room.
He spends the entire season getting back at the front desk man. Shane becomes his worst nightmare. Every time he sees him, he asks about the room. Every time he sees him, he's yelling at him and screaming at him. So what's the point here? What's the lesson, and how does it relate to you in the book? No one is making you do anything. See, from Shane's point of view, the guy ruined his trip by double booking and not giving him the room. He made him angry. But Adlerian psychology argues that Shane's getting exactly what he wants the whole time. Feeling like a victim and feeling empowered. Feeling like that guy owes him something. Feeling like he can have control over somebody through weaponized victimhood. And this book argues a lot of times our problems we create to feel some sense of control or empowerment. But let's switch gears a bit, because the next idea is one of my favorites as well. Talks all about the reason some people have these big dreams, but keep putting them off or never do it. The boy gives a story about his friend, who's a novelist and dreams of being a, breakout writer, like of Stephen King level. But he struggles to find time. He's like, dude, I just work all the time. I got a job. I don't have time to write. And if only I could, then, I could be successful. But I just don't have the time. The philosopher says, dude, your friend is getting exactly what he wants. An excuse to put off doing the work. If he tries, maybe he has to face the brutal reality that he's not as far along as he thought he was. Or publishing anything subjects it to criticism. And that's scary for so many people. So he hides behind the label of, I don't have time, I'm not ready yet. And then the ironic part is when 5-10 years go by and he's like, maybe I should do that. Now he has the excuse, I'm too old. I'm not young anymore. It's a young person's game. This is a label I came up with for this called a success fantasy, where we have a dream and we put it off because we prefer to stay asleep. The fantasy of us crushing it is safe, but the actual reality of doing the work, that's tough, man. A little random, but this fits here. Ira Glass has a great take on creation, how there's taste versus skill. And the reason you get into anything, whether it's writing, music, acting, any art form, is because you have a lot of taste. So you consume a lot of books and you know what's good, or you watch a lot of movies and you know what makes good film. But you don't have the skill because you haven't gotten the reps in. And so when you do go to do the thing, you know what's good, but dude, you don't have the skill for it. So you're frustrated the whole time because you know what you're creating compared to this kind of sucks. And this is why people stay in success fantasies, where they literally stay asleep and keep putting off their dreams. Oh, one day I'm gonna do that. You know, I could do it if I tried. Because doing the thing is brutal, and you're constantly met with your inner critic. You're constantly met with that voice that says it's cringe, it's gonna fail, it's not good. But the secret is understanding that every single person that you look up to in a creative field who's done something has that inner critic as well. And you're not broken if you feel it. And the only way to get good is to do more of it. Big idea number 7. Ooh, this one's good. Talks about the separation of tasks. Okay, so if you picture yourself right now, you have a bubble around you or a circle, right? Everything in that circle is your task, your responsibility. As soon as you leave the circle, everything else on the outside, that's actually other people's tasks. We suffer when we go outside. And this is how to stop caring what people think, is you focus, what are my tasks? And this is stoicism in a nutshell. Again, controlling what's in your locus of control internally instead of externally trying to change the world for how you see it. So now we've spoken about the separation of tasks. What do you do if people don't like you? There's something really practical in here I'll share with you next on the 2 out of 10 perspective. So if you take a group of 10 people that you interact with, this book says 7 will probably not think much of you or they'll be neutral. 2 will vibe with you and like you, but then there's 1 who maybe for whatever reason doesn't like you. You have several options. Option A, you obsess over the 7 out of 10 who don't think much of you, and you try and like get attention, or you try to make yourself over the top. But the problem with that is that the 2 out of 10 who do like you for who you are, now that you've changed yourself, maybe they won't like you. And there's no guarantee that the 7 out of 10 will switch. So maybe you're left with 0. Option 2, you focus and prioritize the 2 out of 10 that love your vibe and love you for who you are. But most of us go full Shane mode and we focus in on that one person who we don't vibe with, and they get in our head. And man, we obsess over, why did they treat me like that? How can I win them over if you're a people pleaser? Or how can I never have anyone not like me? The courage to be disliked, what it really boils down to is giving up the need for approval from everyone. It says that we don't crave approval because it makes us happy. Approval makes us happy because we crave it. And what we're really seeking the entire time is internal approval for ourselves. We want ourselves to give ourselves that same belief, which actually segues perfectly into the next big idea. Big idea number 9. This one is one that if you had told me in my 20s, I would have said, yeah, right, dude. It's that competition is made up. If you're not first, you're last. If you're not winning, you're losing. Also known as a vertical hierarchy, where people are above you and you are above other people. The problem with this in relationships is everyone's your competition. So if other people win, you're not happy for them. You're jealous because your competition just got better. And when you succeed, you're not actually happy. You're just relieved you didn't fail. And guess what? The goalpost always moves when you operate from a vertical hierarchy. You spend 3 weeks trying to crush a sleep token, Phil, and there's some 14-year-old on TikTok who's learned it in 3 hours. True story. You're like, okay, what's the solution? Well, this book argues the second worldview, horizontal relationships, where no one's above or below you, you're horizontally aligned. Where even if you have a boss or someone who has a title that's bigger than you, you still have the same worth as humans. And this one's really hard. Like, I don't know if I've fully mastered it, just to be real with you. I'm trying, but the people I look up to now aren't the ones who drive supercars and like have $50 million to their name or signing autographs. They're people who have peace of mind, or they have presence with their kids and their family. They have a wholeness or fulfillment about them that you can't get when you're playing the vertical hierarchy game. Money and status doesn't mean you're better than people or chosen. It just means you're further along in a specific game. It can be worthwhile to pursue things, get it, and realize, okay, that didn't make me happy, what will? That's sort of an evolution curve you have to develop through. But if you still pursue that your whole life and you're like, it's not working, it's not working, it's not working, maybe it's not you, maybe it's the game you've been playing. Off the soapbox. Big idea number 10. Where does happiness come from? Well, this book argues it comes from one place. Not approval, not feeling accepted, not the opinions of others. It comes from feeling useful. Because when you're in that giving mode, you feel good no matter what the outcome is. In fact, one of my favorite quotes comes from Ralph Waldo Emerson on this about happiness. He says, the purpose of life is not to be happy, it's to be useful, to be honorable, to be compassionate, to have it make some difference that you have lived and lived well. Happiness doesn't come from people telling you how great you are, or successes or accolades. It comes from feeling like you're useful. Bring that into your work, bring that into your relationships, and make that your North Star. And I think you might just develop the courage to be disliked. Now I have a question for you. What do you agree with? Post it in the comments below, or what do you disagree with? What did we leave out? Let me know in the comments below as well. Huge thanks to our sponsor, Thrive Market, for believing in this series. More information on them in the link below. And here's a link to our previous edition of the book breakdowns. Remember to bet on yourself, do hard things, and make your future self proud. Peace.